discussing with my team. And one of the realization came in that, look, analytics today has become so broad, so complex, and so pervasive. There has to be a sense of going into trivia, anecdotally, or also in terms of saying, look, this industry has been there for the last 15 years, 20 years. But the kind of metamorphosis, the kind of change, the kind of, let's say, different aspects we have seen in the last 3 years, and what's going to change in the next 5 years from today, I think will be amazing. And that's where the whole genesis of this presentation came in, where we said, look, while the resurgence of analytics has happened in last 10 years, if I take a kind of a, let's say, circa 2002 to 2012, and what's happened in last 3 years, including 2015, and what will happen in next 5 years, let's put out those perspective thoughts and kind of, let's say, the whole showcasing that what it means for us. And I'm sure being all part of analytics fraternity, though it's very small, and we all gauged in the morning that we all know each other, somewhere here and there. So that was the whole genesis, and we thought that let's put it in a perspective where we go back, we see what's happened, we spend some time on the current state, which is very crucial, and we also dwell in terms of what future means for us. This is where I think we will take the whole address into 3 particular, I would say, areas. The state which has gone by in terms of the last 10 years, pretty much I would say, one second. I think let's go back 10 years back. We talked about the piece around how MIS was considered to be so vital, so pivotal for the business to take decisions. MIS got evolved into ERP, the whole platform of integrating the functions, collecting the knowledge, and deducing some of the inferences came in. We moved in terms of what we say, the lot of intelligence data warehousing platform, which started getting into a mode where the results were much, much possible in terms of either optimizing or also in terms of predicting. And then came the whole, what we say, the evolution of analytics, where right from diagnostic, descriptive, to the piece around what we say predictive and prescriptive today has evolved. Now, when we talk about all these genres, what does it mean? When we go back, let's say 10 years back, did we anticipate all such changes to happen? I'm sure not. Will we anticipate what will happen from here to, let's say, next 5 years? Maybe. And what are organizations doing today to kind of ensure that we reach to a scale where we are trying to kind of grapple with not only the whole deficit of talent, but also the whole invasion of technology, the piece around what we say SMAC, the digital, I would say, detonation, and also not to lose the whole piece around the data, the quantum, the whole velocity, and also the variety piece. I'll straight away jump to this piece, which is more relevant in terms of the current state today. This is the whole genesis. 60 seconds as we talk, as we kind of discuss. The whole infusion of data in terms of the structured, unstructured, from variety of sources is throwing challenges for the organization. And this is where I think the whole genesis is giving challenges to the CXOs, CIOs today, where we are saying, look, data is there, but the source, the whole quantum and the velocity needs to be tackled. And this has a direct linkage when we go back 10 years back. We never forecasted the whole variety and the whole disparate sources of data will be asked to analyze, will be asked to kind of mull over, and maybe kind of come out in terms of deductions. That has been a single most change in terms of what we say data detonation, which has compelled organization, the consumers, as well as providers to look at why we say we have to start evolving fast than anyone else. A quick analogy in terms of what we use as part of, if you take hindsight to the whole, insights piece. If you look at the whole dashboard of a car, right from a rear side view mirror, which is the hindsight piece, if we take the whole performance piece, which is on the dashboards, and if we evolve in terms of the GPS-based kind of a, let's say, the inside piece, that will give you the whole aspect of how analytics has moved from the hindsight piece, which is what we talked about 10 years back, to the whole piece around prescriptive and the predictive piece. Now, this is where the whole evolution, if we start cascading and making it representative into one slide, starts moving into those directions. And if you look at the top in terms of the industries, what we have used, essentially these are also what we say the non-traditional industries which have started consuming analytics in a big way. We never thought transportation, energy, utilities, education, sports, they will start using analytics in a big way. And let's not forget, when we talk about each of these genre change into analytics, it's also come with a lot of challenges in terms of how clients perceive analytics, how they would like to see the output, and how the providers would like to kind of take that as part of what we say, giving it back to the customer. And that's where I think it's pertinent to spend a minute out here. While the industry has evolved in a large way with a lot of change, I think there are still some nuances, still some challenges which are compelling organizations to look, am I getting the right bang for the buck? Am I getting the right output by virtue of using analytics? Now, that's where I think people who are part of the provider community in terms of analytics, be it on the solution, be it on the consulting, be it on the product platform side, have a huge onus. I think as an industry, what we have really enticed and make our presence felt is the usage, the whole kind of, let's say, proliferation of analytics, and the way it can touch the different aspect of customer, or let's say risk, or the operations in terms of what we say functionalities and horizontal. But what's missing today, which is the single biggest piece, customers are saying, can you look at what it can give me in terms of a return? I think that quantum, that outcome, that piece around linking with what he is investing versus what he's getting, I think there are some miles to go over there. That's also because of the nature, because the industry has evolved so fast in the last 10, 12 years, we have lost the aspect of what we say, giving it a kind of a structured way of saying, okay, what's analytics? And I'm sure I can challenge any one of you in this forum. When we talk about the definition of analytics, it will change from each one of the people who will respond. Now, that's the bane of this industry, where we have not been able to kind of really articulate what analytics means for the end customers. And that's why the usual way of customers construing analytics in their own jargons has led to what we say a challenge, where we are struggling to say, look, analytics can be in so many directions, but is it really giving the benefits what the customer wants? Now, there's another added piece which is crucial in this whole piece, what we say, the mobile proliferation. I think the smartphones, the piece around kind of, let's say, data being available on the mobile with so much of interconnected devices, it's throwing a different challenge for the analytics professionals. The piece around where decisions are being taken on a real-time basis, and mobile as a pervasive device is what is forcing organizations to say, look, while digital analytics is fine, mobile analytics is fine, but how can you bring everything on a mobile in terms of even hosting on the cloud in terms of the data, the social piece? Of course, the analytics is the bedrock. And that's something which is a very key feature, which will also define the trend in the next 5 years. This is interesting piece. 3 years back, when we look, there was something which came up which shook the whole industry, and I say the technology IT industry. While they were doing the normal bread and butter, the ADM piece, the piece around technology maintenance and the contract, clients started looking and having those conversations where they said, look, we need to understand what social, mobile, analytics cloud can do for us. Now that was something which was a paradigm shift in terms of the conversations, where still a lot of decisions, with all due regards, are being taken by the CIOs. But that's where at some level, the tinges of business owners coming into those conversations changed the whole game, where they said, look, I know what social mobile analytics cloud can do in supply chain, or maybe marketing, maybe finance, or maybe HR. But is it really something what I see, or can you provide me more perspective and kind of approach what it means? That's where the whole SMAC evolution changed the conversations with the clients. And I think, not to lose, I think when you look at the whole SMAC piece, analytics by all means is the most pivotal bedrock of any strategic decisions clients are taking. Add to one more, I would say, dimension not to miss, the piece around what we say digital. There was a thing which was noted by Gartner a couple of years back, where they said, while SMAC is fine, but there is something through the digital infusion, the nexus of forces will happen, where SMAC society, SMAC economy, SMAC businesses will redefine the future. And we call it future of work. And this is all to do what we say that today, the millennials, the interconnected devices, the whole VUCA factor, what we say, the volatility, uncertainty, ambiguity piece, are changing companies the way they are approaching the customers. The whole aspect of digital can be taken into three pivots or three dimensions. One, when we say, look, this is a redefining of the customer experience. Customers have never given us so much of challenge what they're giving us through the infusion of digital. The second piece, we are today challenging through digital the whole business models, smart manufacturing, the pieces around supply chain optimization, the pieces around how marketing budgets are redefined on the digital platform, the pieces around how risk on the point of sale is becoming a nuisance for the organization, are the reasons where digital cannot be ignored. And the third piece, which is also crucial in the digital, what we say that, look, today, while we talk about the change of the processes, we talk about the customer experience, are you also changing the way you operate as an organization? And that means the whole sum total of it, as we call through nexus of forces, when it come together, it gives the whole change in terms of what analytics means as part of the SMAC, as part of the digital. And I think this is where, if I just go back to the section which is important. Look, we have come a long way today in terms of the last 10 years, the present 3 years, including 2015. But if we take a stroll and try to envision 2016 onwards, maybe through to 2020, does the whole scenario of analytics warrant the same thing what we are doing? Probably not. And I think there are enough dimensions and pivots which are being thrown by analysts, by the various industry experts, that there is something called digital economy which will rule for next 5 years, but the whole bedrock of digital economy, what we say, will be algorithms. How the Ubers, Netflix, Pandoras of the world have changed the whole definitions of the industries just by virtue of making their algorithms very, very proprietary, very, very topical, and the piece around laying the whole business foundations on the algorithms is something making those industries being disruptive and also these companies as very, very topical. So if we look at this pivot, which is the single most, I would say, important as we look at the future state of analytics, I think one of the most important piece will be this whole interconnected devices talking to each other, the piece around what we say in our normal parlance, Internet of Things. 50 billion devices will talk in 2020, and again, numbers can be very, very daunting. But the aspect would be, look, devices will talk, but devices will also throw insights, recommendations, and a lot of intelligence. Now, the piece around intelligence, insights, and recommendations will force industries and companies and organizations to rethink their business model. How insurance, how banking, how retail will be done in next 5 years will be a complete change in terms of what's being done today. The operating rhythm, the processes, and the whole cost of running banks and insurance and retail companies will go for a change because of the digital, because of analytics coming into the forte. Some of the factorials, if we look in terms of what's the whole factors which are shaping up the algorithm economy. Now, this is where it's very, very crucial when we say, look, this is no rocket science. What we've been doing in the past, we will continue to do in terms of analytics, but there'll be a change in terms of a pivot, how we will rethink in terms of what businesses are thinking and what, as analytics professionals, we need to do. Now, that's where some of the pieces around how we see today as we evolve, like there is a lot of talk today when we start doing any project in analytics. One, we say, okay, let's look at this model, this technique, and this output. But somewhere that resonance where the customers are saying, look, while you've heard what I'm saying, have you heard how my industry is changing? And I think that's something which will be infused in terms of what we see today through the conversation with the clients, where they're not asking us to solve a problem through leveraging analytics. They're asking us also to redefine the business model, which means more focus around understanding the business, the domain. That's where the whole subject matter expertise comes into the picture. And if you dovetail that with what we say that, look, you also have to have the industry best practices being supplemented with the changing needs of the business. And that's where the whole piece of analytics throws a different spin altogether. Now, that's not been attempted if you see today in a very holistic manner. How many projects today we are doing in retail, banking, insurance, which are redefining industries, leveraging analytics, and also throwing challenges to the customers where we are having those upfront, proactive conversations with the clients and saying, look, while I have done this particular technique, what you wanted, which clients don't care, by the way, I've given a requisite output. I've also changed the business model for you. And I think that's where the piece around algorithm economy, where analytics will be centered around the business processes in terms of periphery, will start changing the whole gamut of how we operate today. And I think some of the features, if we take right from the customer side or the risk or the operations, even the new evolution in terms of techniques, in terms of how we look at the business challenges and the problems, will also start changing. The way we do text mining, the way we do today, let's say the whole piece around churn, cross-sell, upsell, or maybe a kind of a credit risk modeling for our customers will change very, very dramatically. And the reason why I'm saying is these are the three waves which will define the data-driven economy. If you look from the past, what I have taken through that, there is a democratization of analytics which is happening. And this is true to any industries. And at India, we are very, very strong that everything has a knack of getting commoditized. And that's where it will happen. But what will also happen, it's not about commoditization in terms of what we provide. It's about democratization of analytics, where analytics will be part of strategic discussions, processes in terms of business, and the boardroom conversations will also have analytics as a feature that, look, what's analytics saying in, let's say, HR, finance, or customers? That set of insights and intelligence first will start deciding how those decisions needs to be done. And that's where the second point, which is also crucial, is that the clients will start redefining their models basis analytics, which means the whole infusion, the whole accentuations of the clients in terms of the output will come when they start embedding analytics into their models, which means, of course, the change of model, the change of whole piece around how they run business will be challenged. And the last piece, which is important, look, we always say there is always a change, what we need to do, the new normal. What was something an MIS analyst or a normal data visualizer to kind of a data modeler to a data scientist? I think that paradigm shift is imminent. We may debate in terms of what a data scientist mean, what he or she does, whether this is the right parlance, could be a decision scientist or could be like a art scientist. But the fact is today, the piece around how to solve the unstated business challenges will require a different breed of professionals in terms of how they manage analytics. I think quickly, this is one of the strategic view we have taken at Cognizant. Again, this is no kind of a sales pitch. This is perfectly in sync with what we believe the future of work, the digital economy will define, where we say that every individual, through basis of touch, interactions, and behavior, creates a persona. And when that persona gets analyzed by the companies, by the different providers, by the different suppliers, the piece around how the customer experience will be redefined, how those whole products will be reshaped, how the whole ecosystem will work, and also the solutions will be wrapped around that, is something what we say is the code halo kind of a concept. The concept is simple, where we say, look, there is no reason to deny what these organizations are doing will not be done by other organizations. This is, by the way, just a very small representation, but if you look at the Uber, you look at the whole Netflix, Pandora, LinkedIn, Facebook kind of, let's say, economies, they've been completely disruptive. And those examples are growing today, where we are talking about, look, while these companies have really challenged the business model and being very disruptive, the underpinning of these organizations have been the models, the algorithms, and the kind of analytics profusion they have used to redefine how they should operate. Infrastructure-less, agnostic in terms of the customer base, whole diversity in terms of the platforms they provide, and also, they are also making, some of them, of course, money today. And I think that's where the concept about how fast we understand and challenge the business model will be enforcing the organizations to rethink how analytics should be done. And that's where, to our belief, the new wave of data scientists will change the way it should work. I think we've all heard about how artificial intelligence, the piece around machine learning, deep learning, cognitive aspects are changing the whole genre of analytics. I think that's where one of the fundamental aspects would be that how fast the analytics professionals, right from a leadership to, let's say, the down below who are aspiring to be into part of analytics industry, can start grasping these techniques, because at the end of the day, what works in this industry is that nothing is static, the evolution will happen, and how fast we acclimatize in terms of grasping those techniques will redefine how we change the whole conversations with the clients. But what is also important, if we look, summing up the whole thing, that there is somewhere these evolutionary phases, what we talked about, we also forecasted what will happen or preempted those things. Now, if you look at 10 years back, where we were just fine and content with what we say, looking at the previous or the historical data and just analyzing, to what we say, optimizing the future, to predicting the future outcomes, that's a complete shift we have taken, where we say, look, this is where analytics will change the whole way what we operate. And if you take that approach in terms of how I would like to sum up, right from last 15 years and taking a stab at next 5 years. The biggest change what will happen if you see the last, half of the slide, almost some time back, analytics was part of the business processes of industries, different kind of, let's say, organizations. But as we move to the piece around from SMAC to the device to digital and being part of that whole, what we say, digital and, I would say algorithm economy, analytics will be centered and infused within business processes. Now that's something which means that in the normal strategic and operational orientation with the customers and within the organizations, analytics will be infused. It will already be there. It already would be pervasive, very, very, I would say, directive in terms of what can do. And that's where the piece around what I mentioned, the intelligence, the insight, the recommendation piece will come in from the organizations, from the providers, what they can do. And a proof of this, if we look, putting that, but simply put, the whole, if we look at the evidence of how strong this piece will move is evident from the analysts. Gartner recently, most of you will be aware, chucked out big data as part of any hype cycle they have today, which is one of a very, very kind of, I would say, recent topical thing, which means that, look, it's moved from big data. The second piece is that for the first time, and they defined, top 10 strategic technology trends of 2015, and for the first time, they included analytics as one of the most foremost trend which will redefine the technology. This mentioned smarter, invisible, and pervasive analytics, which means that today, the way they see analytics and the way even I'm sure we are all seeing through the conversations with the clients, that it's already there. It's just the inside piece. It's just the piece around what we say, how we can make those recommendations better, the output better will matter. And I think the time to take decisive call is now, because we might get illuminated in the same way, but it's just at the verge of getting, I would say, hit. So the choice is ours in terms of what meanings we would like to make through the different usage of analytics. That sums up the whole discussions. Open up for any kind of questions, input, suggestions you have.
Hi, good morning. My name is Sunil Jain. We run a supply chain analytics company. Your last slide was thought-provoking, the deer in the headlight. Right? As you look at analytics, we face this with some of the clients in the world. Are we positioning analytics as the crystal ball, which is predictive capabilities and so on, or is it given the dynamic environment that we live in? It's a tool to be able to prepare for events in a more proactive and agile way. How would you position when you're making a pitch? Let's say, Cognizant is working with someone who's totally new to this space. How would you go about that?
Well, first of all, I think what we say in analytics to anyone who's having a 20 years of experience, or even I would say 2 days of experience, that don't be a cookie, be a rookie. It's better to be inquisitive, street smart, rather than just being dumb in terms of not knowing anything. And I challenge everyone, and we always discuss as a team that there's no one an expert in analytics today. This industry has so much evolved and is evolving and throwing different challenges. The state of the nature and the juncture where we are, learning is the only key. But to your point, I think what specifically is being looked into, and this is where I think the whole urge of whosoever is in the analytics provider space is coming, that one thing we all have to realize that while we may have become smart in providing those solutions or frameworks or services, but the customers have also become quite smart. If we have seen a genre change of 15 years in analytics, they have also seen the change in terms of what their industry has gone, in terms of the whole business paradigm being changed. And I think that's where there is a deficit of understanding what they are looking and what we are providing. Our often conversations, and I'm taking a very generic view, are centered around solutions, techniques, and the algorithms. Look, customers don't care whether you provide a neural network or a vector support machine or artificial intelligence algorithm. If they would have been wanting to know about that, they would have done at their own end, which is through a GIC or a captive model, and some of them do that. But outside of the technique, the more important external facade is how much you know their business. And that's one strategic view. The other strategic view is, can you lace the understanding of that business with what we see as part of other best practices being adopted by organizations in the similar space? And then analytics is the bedrock. If those three things are not done, we will never be able to kind of move to the level what analytics industry should be. There are always those contriving views about the size of this industry, but I'm sure every challenge has come in today that how do we take the ticket size of the deals up? That's one of the way, because customers today are earmarking the ticket size of the projects. Okay, let's do a POC. Let's do a kind of a test and hypothesis. Let's do one project. It's not in semblance to a strategic view because of our nature of how we sell, how we kind of manage those projects, and our knack of what we say always looking, okay, take this project and we'll see what comes in. So I think those conversations, once it gets changed, and it needs to be looked into a very, very broad outlook, I think that's where the whole realization and the power of analytics will come into the picture.
I think we had another question here. We have a mic passed on.
Atul sir, all the questions they are keeping reserved for you. So.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. I have a quick question that everything is changing in analytics. What haven't changed? What is the one thing that haven't changed?
I think the one thing which hasn't changed is what I say, the continuous growth of looking at analytics or this whole industry. I think if you look at the, I would say, conservative view, few years back, a lot of analysts were not ready to look at analytics as an industry, to the extent Gartner, Forrester's, HFS of the world never included analytics as part of their trends or hypercycle or the magic quadrants. But look at what has happened. The industry per se, in terms of the growth, in terms of the whole evolution, have compelled them to include those pivots where they say, look, this is the single most biggest trend. So I think what has not changed is what I say, unsatiable appetite for analytics consumers as well as the providers. And you see today that one good aspect, I think we often discuss, whether you're working in a large consulting firm or a large service provider doing analytics, the best feature about analytics we always related, look at the niche boutique ecosystem of analytics, data science, which has been created, where there is so much of capabilities, offering solution product platforms these niche boutique companies are doing, which a large consulting or a kind of a service provider can never do that. Now that's where it's a very unique, I would say, cusp of, I would say, piece where if the whole ecosystem gets managed nicely, and some of them are doing it in a very symbiotic way, because there is a kind of a relationship, there is a kind of a benefits for both niche boutique as well as large analytics service providers. But if that secret sauce and the formula can be devised working with each other, I think we can take this industry to a very different level altogether. Sorry, I'm not able to hear you. Can you just raise the tone, please?
Can you hear me?
Perfect.
You rightly mentioned one of the challenges in today's analytics industry is to define the new business process and suggest clients on their new business. And I also, from my small experience, I've seen bringing lateral thought process from other domains is also important. So how do you think that one side you need a subject matter experts, but within in analytics, also you need starting lateral thought process from other industries. So how these two things can move in parallel? What do you think?
I think that's a very good question, because I think we always have those rigid views about, okay, if the person knows modeling, if the person is able to kind of do a data massaging, harmonization, or able to kind of, be a good kind of a visualization expert, let's pick him up. I think the trend has changed. It's changed dramatically, where I think there has never been so much of demand, if I say, for people who know social science, behavioral science, people who are good in terms of even art. I'm taking a very non-traditional approach. People who have a view about how the designs should be got into the whole picture of kind of assembling the whole analytics piece. Now, I think this is where the industry in analytics and data science will go for a change. The non-traditional roles, be it on the operational research, mathematics, statisticians, will continue to be in the forefront. But the pieces around how we relate the behavioral science, even the doctors, we have seen some of the doctors being part of analytics organizations, some of the engineers. Now that piece, if you look in terms of what digital will do, there's so much of demand when we say, okay, look, while it's good to have a data scientist, but it's also good to have someone who is a storyteller. Now, where is that storyteller as a job description and a spec came from? It's all about what we say, look, at the end of the day, you need someone to really articulate in a manner where clients understand that this guy knows, or this provider is able to knit business, technology, domain, and analytics put together. And that's where you need a storyteller. And that's where it's a very different genre of people or a talent put together. And that's where you say, okay, I cannot hire unless I'm looking from a non-traditional set of industries. And one of the good things which has happened, if you see with so much of proliferation of analytics, what we say, that it's also thrown a lot of good opportunities for people coming from banks, retail, or different organizations where what they're trying to do is to learn analytics and get into this kind of field. So I think you would see an infusion of different sources, talent base, and different, I would say, streams, which will make this industry very, very interesting. We'll just take the last question, I think, somewhere.
Yeah, thank you, sir. This is Sudarshan from IBM.
Can I see your hand? Sorry.
Sorry,
the light is on.
Yeah. This question is, it can go to anybody. This is the right platform, I think, for having this question. India being basically an agriculture country, and IT is one of its emerging source of income and livelihood for most of the people. The analytics, as it is developed right now, apart from the previous answer that you have given, that traditional mathematics and statistics, other subjects, they are combined with the latest IT techniques, including big data and other stuff. So IT department is one of the IT sector is one of the major potential place where the analytics can grow much compared to any other sector of India, right? And how it is going to help the agriculture sector, which is far away from our normal day-to-day life, like technical gadgetries or sensors or anything to collect data from. And it's largely unstructured and unorganized sector. And India needs, of course, so we have a lot of analytics forums, analytics things happening across the countries, developed countries, which are not basically agriculture countries. India is basically an agriculture country, which is having high potential to give a lot of stuff to the world. So how we are going to mix, I'm trying to formulate since several years how we are going to get this sector involved into our analytics. We all sit here in cities and discuss about a lot of IoTs, deep learning and other stuff, how it is going to affect the base level Indian economy at the agriculture. Thank you. Thank you for your thoughts.
I think it's a very relevant question for a lot of what we say the non-traditional industry, and which is what I mentioned in the initial part of my presentation, that be it agriculture, be it education, be it sports, be it what we say other non-traditional industries. Of course, it's always a case where the money is being spent, and that's where the whole drove of the companies go into. But if we stick our approach where we say, look, at some level, with so much of analytics happening and it's being so ubiquitous, will it start having a trickling down impact in these industries? Definitely. I'll give an example specifically on agriculture. ICRISAT, though it's funded by the US in Hyderabad, is doing a major analytics project with some of the research companies in US where it's not about just predicting the crop pattern. It's about how drones can be used, how the whole sensing approach around the weather can predict the yields of the crops from not only for this year, for next 5 and 10 years, keeping in view the economies of the countries as well, because that's one of the very major view, because if the economies are strong, the agriculture status will also grow. If it's not, it has a ripple effect. I think over there, if we look at the projects, if we look at those kind of, let's say, assignments and approaches or pursuits which are being done, it's quite good. But I agree to your point that have we really invaded and really infused ourselves as part of what analytics can be leveraged for these industry? Answer is no. I think it's coming. It will start having those kind of impacts where all these industries will also see a lot of interventions. But I think it's some maybe couple of years away where those best practices will start evolving as well. Thank you so much.